This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Sue Herrera.
Shop till you drop. Americans are expected to spend a lot of money this holiday season. Will consumers power the economy in the months ahead? Hack attack? Johnson & Johnson warns diabetic patients that its insulin pumps are vulnerable. Dinner disrupted. The big tech companies are reshaping the Silicon Valley restaurant scene, and not everyone is happy about it. Those stories and more tonight on Nightly Business Report for Tuesday, October 4th. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sue Herrera. Tyler Matheson is on assignment tonight. We begin with the consumer, the engine of the U.S. economy. Spending accounts for nearly 3/4 of U.S. activity, and it has powered the economy for most of the year. But recently, there have been signs spending may be slowing, or at least taking a breather. Today, that notion was put on the back burner when a retail trade group issued an upbeat forecast and said it expects Americans to spend a lot this holiday season, the most important time of the year for the industry. Courtney Reagan has the details.
You may just be warming up to pumpkin spice latte season, but it's time to start thinking about the holidays. Sure, there's an election unlike any other and a potential rate hike between now and Christmas, but neither Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, nor Janet Yellen are wearing their Scrooge suits in consumers' minds. The National Retail Federation is out with its holiday sales forecast, projecting a 3.6% increase over last year, stronger than last year's 3% growth, which was below estimates because December temperatures in the 60s in much of the country hit retailers hard. The group's chief economist is more bullish this year because the fundamentals are better. More Americans are working. Net worth and incomes are up. And last year, the Chinese currency devaluation shocked investor confidence. We haven't had an event like that this season. From the NRF's perspective, political unrest be darned, Santa is bullish. But not everyone is ready to predict a guaranteed holiday home run this year.
Certainly the economic data would indicate that the consumer is in a really good place right now. And so where the disconnect is with the consumer spending, which has been a little bit weak in recent months. So certainly the election could be a part of the overhang with the consumer. We're watching to see if maybe as those clouds lift, if the consumer doesn't get out and spend again.
Still, the retail lobby group isn't alone in its optimistic forecast. Retail Next, Alex Partners, Deloitte, and Cantor Retail project total holiday sales to improve somewhere between 3.2% and 4%. That's pretty strong and a lot better than GDP growth. While upwards of 85% of retail sales still come from physical stores, the online shopping influence is growing. Online-only holiday sales are expected to continue their exponential growth trend. Similar to years past, consumers are looking for the best merchandise at great prices. And for online shoppers, free, fast shipping and returns is a near requirement. Cowen & Company analyst Oliver Chin thinks shoppers are in for great bargains this year.
We like names like Ross Stores. We also think department stores could be in a good position here because of better inventory trends in terms of tighter management of inventory, as well as good demand and better weather. We like Nordstrom. We have a neutral rating on Macy's. However, we do acknowledge that sales trends could be pretty good.
Chen also says beauty and athleisure trends will help Ulta and Lululemon be gift-giving destinations this holiday season. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Courtney Reagan.
Scott Hoyt joins us now to talk more about what he's expecting from the consumer in the months ahead. He is Senior Director of Consumer Economics at Moody's Analytics. Welcome, Scott. Nice to have you here. Courtney,
nice to be here, Sue.
Courtney laid out some of the basics, but we did have some worrisome data back in August. Was that a one-off? And is the consumer going to be the driving force for the economy as we enter into the holiday season?
Yes, we do think that was a one-off. It was largely driven by a temporary decline in vehicle sales, which have since picked back up. And we do think consumers are going to continue to drive the economy as we go forward.
What kind of a holiday season will it be? Do you think that we will see a lot of discounting? Consumers are pretty much used to the fact that they're going to get good bargains.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much it'll be discounting and how much it'll just be the fact that prices aren't rising very much, or in some cases are declining. But I think consumers will get good bargains this year.
What about energy prices? We did see a pickup in consumer spending when energy prices turned south, but that's changed considerably. How big a factor will that be?
I think that'll just be a small factor. I mean, energy prices are rising, but they're only really inching up. They're not moving up rapidly. And seasonally, prices tend to be soft this time of year anyway. So barring some unexpected event, we don't think energy prices are going to be a big factor for consumers this holiday season.
Other people feel as though the election, even though obviously it comes before the holiday season, but regardless of who wins the White House, that may be a disruptor, if you will, for consumer spending. Do you view it that way or not?
We think that's unlikely. Past elections have not disrupted spending. While this one is different, so it's something we need to watch for, that's not our assumption is that it won't be disruptive.
All right, we'll leave it there. Scott, thank you very much. Scott Hoyt with Moody's Analytics. And that upbeat spending outlook was not enough to lift stocks as a rising dollar pressured equities. Investors were also focused on comments from Richmond Fed President Jeffrey Lacker, who said there is a strong case to raise interest rates and keep inflation under control. As a result, the Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 85 points to 18,168. The Nasdaq was down 11 and the S&P 500 dropped 10. The International Monetary Fund cut its growth forecast for the U.S. and said the world economy is moving sideways. The agency said the U.S. and Europe have both been hampered by weak productivity growth, aging populations, and income gains that have, for the most part, gone to the highest earners. The IMF also said that the isolationist trend could likely depress growth further. Believe it or not, earnings season is almost upon us, and this quarter could possibly bring an end to a troubling trend. Bob Pisani explains why quarterly results may be at a turning point.
The earnings recession may be about to end. Now here's why. On the surface, the news is kind of gloomy. The third quarter earnings for the S&P 500 are set to decline 0.5% compared to the same period a year ago. Now, this would be the fifth consecutive quarter of earnings decline for the S&P 500. It would be the worst showing since 2007-2009. But this is the good news. There's a good chance that all this could possibly change. So that's because revenue growth is turning positive. Revenue growth, that's top-line growth, is really the key to earnings growth. Revenue growth tends to lead earnings growth. Now, revenue growth is very broad-based right now. 9 of the 11 sectors are expecting growth, with notable gains expected from several big sectors: consumer discretionary, that's like retail stocks and home builders, healthcare, as well as technology. Now, several sectors are leading the revenue growth story, starting with technology. That's because all the companies that make semiconductors, Broadcom, Intel, Micron, NVIDIA, Xilinx, they're all the beneficiaries of the need for new memory chips in the phones that we're buying and the virtual reality devices we're buying, as well as the drive for chips that use less energy and are less draining on batteries. Then there's this cloud technology and the relentless need to store more data. All of this requires bigger, better, and faster chips. It's not just technology with stronger revenue gains overall. Several healthcare sectors will also have strong gains. So, for example, pharmaceuticals like Bristol Myers and HMOs like Aetna and Cigna are also set to report very strong revenue gains. Now, what about energy? Oil and gas companies are still the biggest drag on earnings and revenues. But with oil closer to $50 than $40, even oil companies may have a much better fourth quarter than anticipated. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Bob Pisani at the New York Stock Exchange.
Hurricane Matthew's fierce winds and rain pummeled Haiti, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. Now, as that storm makes its way north, the governor of South Carolina is calling for an evacuation of coastal communities starting tomorrow. And preparations are underway in Florida, where Governor Rick Scott declared a state of emergency.
Protecting life is our #1 priority. If Matthew directly impacts Florida, there will be massive destruction that we haven't seen in years. This is a deadly storm approaching our coast. I cannot stress that enough.
And take a look at this amazing picture. Today, NASA released powerful images of Hurricane Matthew taken from the International Space Station. So joining us now to help put Hurricane Matthew's impact on the U.S. into context is Dan Leonard, senior meteorologist at the Weather Company. Dan, nice to have you here. Good to see you again.
Hi, Sue.
This is obviously a monster storm, and you say one of the things that will be a story here is the fact that it's not going to come ashore in the traditional sense.
Yes, this is what really makes Matthew the most interesting storm that I've dealt with in a long time, Sue, and that's the fact that it doesn't look like it's going to make a traditional landfall. Now, if you think of traditional landfalling hurricanes, they sort of come on shore in a specific point, and you have a lot of damage right at that landfalling point, and then less damage on the outside, sort of further away from the eye. This time around, it looks like Matthew may actually skirt the coast or just stay just offshore of the coast from Florida all the way through the Carolinas. If that in fact happens, you won't have the pinpoint really strong damage that you get with an eye that comes on shore, but what you will get is a lot of moderate to extensive damage over a long stretch of shoreline from anywhere from West Palm Beach all the way up through North Carolina. So this is a very interesting and perhaps very devastating storm for the Southeast, Sue.
Now, economically, too, I mean, it's being compared to Hurricane Floyd, which did an enormous amount of monetary damage. What can you glean from Matthew at this point, if anything?
It's too early to say this will be a Floyd repeat. Certainly the potential is there. What we have to really worry about at this point is whether there will be any additional strengthening. Right now it's a Category 4, and it looks like it will maintain at least Category 3 status as it approaches Florida on Thursday. Obviously, a Category 4 would be much more impactful than, say, a Category 2 or Category 3. So I think that's really the wild card right now at this point and how much damage there will be. But I will say this does look like it's going to be significant amount of damage. Whether we get to that Floyd level or not, I'm not quite sure yet. But yes, there is the possibility that we will get there, Sue. All
right. We will be watching it very closely, as you will be, Dan. Thank you very much. Dan Leonard with the Weather Company. Still ahead, why there's one issue in particular that small business owners are focused on this election. Senator David Vitter says that Wells Fargo, then that fake account scandal, has impacted about 10,000 small business owners. According to Reuters, Senator Vitter wrote a letter to CEO John Stumpf demanding a full accounting of small business owners affected by what he called fraudulent activity. Safety regulators have launched an investigation into the safety of brakes on certain F-150 pickup trucks, the top-selling vehicle in the U.S. Owners of some 2015 and 2016 model years have described a, quote, sudden and complete loss of braking. The investigation covers about 280,000 pickup trucks. And a warning from Johnson & Johnson to users of one of its insulin pumps. It could be vulnerable to a hack. Meg Terrell has more on the latest medical device facing a cybersecurity threat.
More than 100,000 people with diabetes recently got a strange letter from Johnson & Johnson. The healthcare giant was warning them of a cybersecurity risk with one of its insulin pumps. The one-touch Ping insulin pump system comes with a remote control to enable delivery of insulin. J&J says nobody's been harmed in this way, but that it is possible someone could hack into the device and control insulin delivery.
We need to give users and patients the information so that way they can determine if it's too risky for them or if it's not risky for them.
Jay Radcliffe is the researcher who made the discovery. While he works in cybersecurity at firm Rapid7, his work on the insulin pump was a side project. He's diabetic, and it was his pump on which he did the research.
This is just out of my own personal curiosity about how these devices work and how safe they are for my own personal use as a diabetic.
J&J says the probability of unauthorized access to the one-touch Ping system is extremely low. Someone trying to hack in would have to be within 25 feet of the person wearing the device and have extremely specialized skills, not to mention harmful intentions. The company says there are ways to mitigate the risk, turning off the radio frequency feature, limiting how much insulin can be delivered at once, and setting a vibrating alert system. The device is 8 years old. Newer systems, J&J says, have encryption technology that would be harder to hack. It says this issue doesn't exist in its other products. But cybersecurity in medical devices is a growing area of focus. The Food and Drug Administration issued draft guidance to manufacturers in January. And in August, security firm MedSec teamed with short seller Muddy Waters and issued a report on heart devices made by St. Jude Medical. They allege St. Jude's devices could be hacked in ways that makes them malfunction or lose battery power. The FDA has said it's investigating. St. Jude disputes the claims, citing an external report, and has sued both Muddy Waters and MedSec. As for Radcliffe, he doesn't use that pump anymore, but he said that's not because of his findings.
Johnson & Johnson and Rapid7 worked very hard at testing out these mitigation strategies and testing out these solutions that we've published, especially turning off the radio frequency portion works 100% at eliminating the risk.
For Nightly Business Report, I'm Meg Terrell.
Olive Garden bucks the trend of slumping restaurants, and that's where we begin tonight's market focus. Restaurant chain operator Darden posted better than expected earnings and raised its guidance thanks to the Olive Garden's 8th consecutive quarter of same-store growth. Darden is also buying back up to $500 million worth of shares. Shares of Darden were up just a fraction at $61.72. Sears is reportedly attracting interest for its Craftsman tool business. Bloomberg says Stanley Black & Decker and Tektronic Industries have reportedly made some bids. The winning offer, which is due by the end of the month, may be as high as $2 billion. Sears rose nearly 6.5% to $12.10. Google unveiled its new flagship smartphones, the Pixel and the Pixel XL. The phones will replace Google's prior smartphone venture called the Nexus and directly take on Apple's iPhone. Shares of Google's parent Alphabet were up a fraction to $802.79. And Yahoo reportedly scanned hundreds of millions of its users' incoming emails for U.S. intelligence officials. Reuters says the tech giant built a custom software program to search the emails to comply with a classified U.S. government demand. It could be the first time a U.S. internet company agreed to a government request to search all incoming mail. Yahoo shares were up a nickel to $43.18. As the two vice presidential candidates get ready for their first and only debate, small business owners are focused on health care and policy and what changes, if any, may be ahead and how that might impact their livelihoods. Kate Rogers reports.
With just over a month to go until the November elections, small business owners like Pedro Alfonso are wondering what a new administration might mean for the nation's healthcare system. Alfonso is CEO of Washington, D.C.-based Dynamic Concepts, Inc., an infrastructure services firm. He's long offered insurance to his staff of more than 300, but says the Affordable Care Act has spiked costs.
We've had a 10% increase in healthcare costs that jumped last year. So we are being impacted from all angles when it comes to Affordable Care Act. For right now, for the next decade, we're taking the hit.
He's also sought consulting help, implemented a new accounting system, and even hired a new worker to help navigate the law's complexities. While he doesn't support a full repeal of the law, as Republican nominee Donald Trump has proposed, it's unclear what Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton's plans to strengthen Obamacare's protections might mean for costs.
As a small business owner, as an American that care about our employees, we want them to have good health care. We want healthy employees. So Affordable Care Act has good intentions, but there's costs and there's the benefits of those costs. And we just, as a small business owner, we just want a balance.
Alfonso isn't alone. According to the National Federation of Independent Business, healthcare is the #1 issue for small companies this year, with 70% citing costs as their top concern. Now, separate data from the National Small Business Association finds that 42% of small companies say they've even contacted lawmakers about healthcare costs. In Tucson, Arizona, Bake Schaefer has also been hit with higher costs due to the law's employer mandate, which kicked in for the nation's smallest businesses this year. He runs a dry cleaning and laundry business with 52 full-time workers. Under the law, any business with more than 50 full-time employees working more than 30 hours a week have to offer coverage or face penalties of up to $2,000 per worker per year. But beyond costs, Schaefer says he wants to know what's ahead so he can better plan and compete.
I don't know how to plan for ACA because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen in Washington that's going to change things. I don't know what's going to happen in the insurance marketplaces that's going to change things. And I'm going to have to react to that instantaneously, and I just hope that I will be able to do so.
Both businesses say they're still undecided, evaluating candidates' plans and searching for more detail as November 8th edges closer and closer. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Kate Rogers.
Coming up, new menu, how tech companies disrupted, literally, the Silicon Valley restaurant industry. Facebook's foray into the world of e-commerce did not go as planned. As we reported yesterday, Facebook's new Marketplace is a platform that lets users buy and sell goods with other nearby users. It's seen as a potential competitor to eBay and Craigslist. But as Julia Borston reports, Facebook's Marketplace quickly became a black market.
Within hours of Facebook launching its Marketplace feature, people were selling everything from drugs and guns to animals and sex. Criticism of these types of offerings exploding on Twitter and Facebook itself.
It's shocking that a company that is as in tune to what's going on its platform as Facebook, to have those kind of issues come up is a big surprise. I think it's an oversight on a filter and likely to be quickly corrected.
The feature is designed for Facebook's 1.7 billion users to sell items to each other within the app. Facebook saying 450 million people already visit buy and sell groups each month.
Facebook apologizing for the illicit items, saying a technical issue prevented the identification of posts that violated company policies.
Saying, quote, "We are working to fix the problem and will be closely monitoring our systems to ensure we are properly identifying and removing violations before giving more people access to Marketplace." But Facebook's Marketplace has drawn criticism for the fact that it doesn't have a secure payment system or star ratings like eBay does. And security experts warn that it doesn't facilitate delivery, which could lead to in-person meetings with unvetted sellers. Now analysts are watching to see whether it poses a threat to eBay, Etsy, and Craigslist, and what it says about Facebook's ability to innovate.
I would see it as it's incremental. It's not necessary. What's necessary is for them to really nail the monetization advertising around Instagram, the video piece of it, continuing to be competitive with Snapchat, tapping into bots and messaging with WhatsApp, and building VR and mixed reality with Oculus. Those are the real foundations of the company.
This isn't Facebook's first try with Marketplace. It first launched something very similar back in 2007, but it never took off. Instead, Facebook shifted the feature over to groups, allowing people to post items for sale. We'll see what Facebook learned from that experience and this latest technical misstep to make Marketplace work this time. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Julia Borston in Los Angeles.
Silicon Valley restaurants may be the latest casualty of tech companies driving up housing costs and driving out middle to low income workers. Restaurant owners say not only are their rents skyrocketing, they're also losing their top talent in the kitchen to big tech companies. Aditi Roy tells us how the industry is being squeezed.
Corridor Cafe is a brand new restaurant in the heart of downtown San Francisco. Nestled among tech companies, its big windows and stylish atmosphere beckon deep-pocketed workers passing by. But owner Ryan Cole still gets worried about staying in business.
Remember the first time we lost a cook? It was probably about 3 years ago. We lost a cook to Apple.
That was the first time he lost a cook to a big tech company.
The next time is Twitter. The next time is a new startup.
In all, he's lost 4 cooks in 3 years to tech companies like Google or Facebook with on-campus dining options, offering his staff higher salaries, better hours, and more enticing perks. He's not the only one. Restaurateurs across the Bay Area are feeling the squeeze from tech giants that are poaching their talent, driving up rent, and making it more expensive for restaurants to stay in business and their staff to live nearby. For every employee who leaves, it costs Cole thousands of dollars to replace them, from placing help wanted ads to training.
That doesn't count the overtime when you're paying $24, $26 an hour of overtime for a cook because you don't have enough people to work. It doesn't take into account your mental sanity as an owner of trying to keep up with what's going on. And for any guest that walks out of here unhappy, that's the kicker. That's where it's impossible to quantify.
In Palo Alto alone, 70,000 square feet of restaurant and retail space was lost to office space between 2008 to 2015. Cole is fighting back by operating his business like a startup, offering employees perks like free gym memberships to Amazon gift cards. He says it's keeping his staff around a bit longer, but it's not a cure-all.
Less people are going to culinary school, it feels like. Less people are looking to get into the profession. And I think that has to do with the tech option. If you're interested in food, you could work for Munchery or Sprig or Blue Apron or Twitter. There's a lot of options where you don't have to work nights, weekends. You get holidays, you get vacation, you get comparable pay.
He says some restaurants are having their chefs serve so they can get tips. Other restaurants are changing around their recipes so line cooks can do less. But despite their efforts, the root of the problem isn't going away. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Aditi Roy, San Francisco.
And finally tonight, the richest Americans. The 400 people on Forbes' annual list are worth a combined record-setting $2.4 trillion. Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates retained the top spot for the 23rd consecutive year. His net worth, $81 billion. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos is number 2, moving past Warren Buffett. He's worth $67 billion. Warren Buffett himself at number 3 at $65 billion. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump is in 156th place with an estimated net worth of more than $3.5 billion, down $800 million from last year. On that note, that will do it for Nightly Business Report for tonight. I'm Sue Herrera. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow night.